As President Trump starts the final 2 years of his term, he faces new challenges. For the first time, he must deal with a divided Congress after Democrats regain control of the House. Robert Mueller's Russia probe appears to be reaching its conclusion, and there are new challenges overseas from allies like Saudi Arabia and adversaries like North Korea. We sat down with Mr. Trump Friday in the Roosevelt Room, just across from the Oval Office, hoping to explore a presidency at a turning point. Mr. President, thank you for talking with us.
Thank you, Chris, very much.
Let's start with the state of Donald Trump.
Right.
There are a number of stories out there that you're angry about the midterms, about your treatment in the media, about the way you were treated when you were in Paris. One story even said that you were in a, quote, cocoon of bitterness and resentment.
Right.
We'll get into all the details later, but how dark is your mood?
It's very light. It's fake news. It's disgusting fake news. I read a front page story in the Washington Post. They never even call me. Nobody ever calls me. You know, they hear, I don't even think they have sources. I think they just make it up like it's fiction. And I will tell you, I'm extremely upbeat. The White House is running like a well-oiled machine. It's doing really well. I have great people. I will make some changes, but not very many. I'm very happy with my cabinet, other than, you know, a couple of exceptions, and even there I'm not unhappy. And I will tell you that it's so wrong. The reporting about me is so wrong. I'm loving what I'm doing. I did well in France. I did have a problem where I wasn't able to go to a cemetery because the Secret Service would not let me do it.
We'll get into all of this, sir.
No, but I'm just telling you, the Secret Service would not let me do it, and they made it a big deal.
You've said a lot of things there. Let's try to unpack them. There's a lot of talk about staff changes. Your deputy national security advisor was moved out after your wife did something I've never heard of a first lady doing before, publicly calling for her removal. Are you comfortable with the way that went down, where it kind of looked like your wife was firing one of your advisors?
Well, I didn't know the advisor well, really, and I know they had a lot of problems. My wife did a great job in Africa, and she was not treated properly by the press. She really worked so hard. They came to me. They wanted to go a little bit public because that's the way they felt, and I thought it was fine. I met with Mira 2 days ago, and we're going to move her around. She was with me for a long time, although I don't know her. She's really somebody I don't know very well. But we're going to move her around because she's got certain talents. But frankly, she'll never be put in the United Nations, let me put it that way.
Meaning she's not too diplomatic?
She's not too diplomatic, but she's talented.
Are you happy with Kirstjen Nielsen at DHS?
Well, I like her a lot. I respect her a lot. She's very smart. I want her to get much tougher, and we'll see what happens there, but I want to be extremely tough.
What are the chances she'll be DHS secretary?
Well, there's a chance, but there's a chance everybody. I mean, that's what happens in government. You leave, you make a name, you go. The people that have left have done very well. The people that have left have done very well from my White House. I like her very much. I respect her very much. I'd like her to be much tougher on the border, much tougher, period.
Back in July, you said that Chief of Staff John Kelly will be here through 2020. Can you still say that?
I wouldn't. Look, we get along well. There are certain things I love what he does, and there are certain things that I don't like that he does that aren't his strength. It's not that he doesn't do, you know, he works so hard. He's doing an excellent job in many ways. There are a couple of things where it's just not his strength. It's not his fault. It's not his strength.
Such as?
But I haven't even thought about John in terms of this. But John at some point is going to want to move on. John will move on.
So 2020 is no longer written in stone.
It could happen. Yeah, it could be. I mean, it could be. But let's see what happens. I have not. Look, I have 3 or 4 or 5 positions that I'm thinking about. Of that, maybe it's going to end up being 2, maybe. But I need flexibility.
You have already made at least one big change, naming Matt Whitaker as your acting Attorney General. He has a long record of speaking out against the special counsel and his probe.
I could see a scenario where Jeff Sessions is replaced with a recess appointment, and that Attorney General doesn't fire Bob Mueller, but he just reduces the budget so low that his investigation grinds to almost a halt.
The truth is, there was no collusion with the Russians in the Trump campaign.
Did you know, before you appointed him, that he had that record and was so critical of Robert Mueller?
I did not know that. I did not know he took views on the Mueller investigation as such.
And when you found that out?
I don't think it had any effect. If you look at those statements they really can be viewed either way, but I don't think it would have any impact.
He says there's no collusion.
Chris, I'll tell you what.
He says you can starve the investigation.
Right. What do you do when a person's right? There is no collusion. He happened to be right. I mean, he said it. So if he said there is collusion, I'm supposed to be taking somebody that says there is, because then I wouldn't take him for two reasons. But the number one reason is the fact that he would have been wrong. If he said that there's no collusion, he's right.
He is going to have to make, or could potentially make, a lot of big calls in the Mueller investigation. If Mueller decides that he wants to subpoena you, the Attorney General, Whitaker, can block that. If Mueller issues a final report, he can decide how much goes to Congress or doesn't go to Congress. You tweeted this week about, quote, Bob Mueller and his gang of Democrat thugs.
Right.
If Whitaker decides in any way to limit or curtail the Mueller investigation, are you okay with that?
Look, it's going to be up to him. I think he's very well aware politically. I think he's astute politically. He's a very smart person, a very respected person. He's going to do what's right. I really believe he's going to do what's right.
But you won't overrule him if he decides to curtail.
I would not get involved. And all these people that say, I'm going to end the investigation, you know, they've been saying that now for, how long has this witch hunt gone on? It's gone on for what?
Since May of 17.
Okay, but how long have I been looked at? You know when I've been looked at?
Since July of 2016.
From the day I announced, I was looked at as a candidate with nothing, no proof, with phony people like McCabe and Strzok and his lover. You had Lisa Page, his lover. These people were looking at me. They wanted an insurance policy just in case I won or Hillary lost. And this was the insurance policy. It's a scam. There was no collusion whatsoever, and the whole thing is a scam.
Your team is preparing written answers to questions about...
No, not my team. I'm preparing written answers. I'm the one that does the answer. Yes, are they writing them out?
Yes.
Yeah, they're writing what I tell them to write.
Are they going to be submitted?
At some point very soon, yes. I've completed them.
So you are submitting...
And it wasn't a big deal. By the way, it wasn't a big deal. The questions were asked and answered. It wasn't a big deal. You know, they make it like I had meetings for many, many hours. I got the questions. I responded. We wrote them out. I read them once. I read them a second time. We made some changes. That's it. They're very simple. You know why? I did nothing wrong.
Here's my question, though. You are submitting written answers to the special counsel about the issue of collusion, but not on obstruction of justice.
Well, there was no obstruction of justice.
Let me, if I may, sir, just
ask. I think they probably agree with that. And all you have to do is look at Article 2.
Is that your final position, that there's going to be no sit-down interview and nothing, written or in person, on obstruction?
I would say probably. Probably. I mean, I can change my mind, but probably. I think we've wasted enough time on this witch hunt, and the answer is probably. We're finished.
What are the odds? 1 in 100?
I don't do odds. I gave very detailed...
casinos, sir.
You're right, and very successfully, actually. We gave very, very complete answers to a lot of questions that I shouldn't have even been asked. And I think that should solve the problem. I hope it solves the problem. If it doesn't, I'll be told and we'll make a decision at that time. But probably this is the end.
Turkish President Erdogan says that he has shared a tape with the U.S. and other countries that is of the killing of Jamal Khashoggi inside the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. Have you, one, either heard the tape yourself or been briefed on it? And if so, to your mind, what does it show?
We have the tape. I don't want to hear the tape. No reason for me to hear the tape.
Why don't you want to hear it, sir?
Because it's a suffering tape. It's a terrible tape. I've been fully briefed on it. There's no reason for me to hear it. In fact, I said to the people, should I? They said, you really shouldn't. There's no reason. I know everything that went on the tape without having to.
And what happened?
It was very violent, very vicious, and terrible.
A month ago, you said you had spoken with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman and that he had told you directly that he had no knowledge of this.
That's right. And still says that.
But we now know that some of the people closest to him, some of his closest advisors were part of this. Question, did MBS lie to you, sir?
I don't know. You know, who can really know? But I can say this. He's got many people now that say he had no knowledge.
What if the Crown Prince, speaking to you, the President of the United States, directly lied to you about
Well, he told me that he had nothing to do with it. He told me that, I would say, maybe 5 times at different points.
So what if he's lying?
As recently as a few days ago.
Do you just live with it because you need him?
Well, will anybody really know? All right, will anybody really know? But he did have certainly people that were reasonably close to him that were probably involved. You saw we put on very heavy sanctions, massive sanctions on a large group of people from Saudi Arabia. But at the same time, we do have an ally, and I want to stick with an ally that in many ways has been very good.
So if Congress were to move to either try to cut off any U.S. involvement in the war in Yemen or to block any arms sales, you won't go along with it?
Well, I want to see Yemen end, but it takes 2 to tango. Iran has to end it also. And Iran is a different country than it was when I took over. It's far weakened because of what I did with the so-called Iran deal, Iran nuclear deal, which was one of the great rip-offs of all time. But I want Saudi to stop, but I want Iran to stop also.
When Democrats flipped the House back in 2006 and picked up 30 seats, President Bush 43 had a news conference the next day and said, we had a thumping. Last week, in this election, the House picked up so far its 36 seats. It may be on the way to 40 seats. And your reaction was that it was almost a complete victory.
I won the Senate. You don't mention that.
Well,
excuse me. I won the Senate.
I understand
that. I think they said 88 years.
But this was this is a historically big defeat in the House. You lost 36, maybe 40 seats. Some would argue that it was a thumping. And I want to talk about some of the ways in which you lost. You lost in traditionally Republican suburbs, not only around liberal cities like Philadelphia and D.C., but also red state big cities like Houston and Oklahoma City. You lost among suburban women. You lost among independents. And in 3 key states that I think you remember pretty well, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan, you lost both the governor's seats and the Senate seats.
Are you ready? I won the Senate. And that's historic too. Because if you look at presidents in the White House, it's almost never happened where you won a seat. We now have 53 as opposed to 51. And we have 53 great senators in the U.S. Senate. We won. That's a tremendous victory. Nobody talks about that. That's a far greater victory than it is for the other side. Number 2, I wasn't on the ballot.
Wait, you kept saying.
I said, look at me. I said, look at me.
Pretend I'm on the ballot.
But I have people, and you see the polls, how good they are. I have people that won't vote unless I'm on the ballot, okay? And I wasn't on the ballot. And almost everybody that I won, I think they said it was 10 out of 11, and I went against President Obama and Oprah Winfrey and Michelle Obama in a great state called Georgia for the governor, and it was all stacked against Brian, and I was the one that went for Brian, and Brian won. Look at Florida. I went down to Florida. Rick Scott won. And he won by a lot. I don't know what happened to all those votes that disappeared at the very end. And if I didn't put a spotlight on that election before it got down to the 12,500 votes, he would have lost that election, okay, in my opinion. He would have lost. They were taking that election away from him. Rick Scott won Florida. He have to say, excuse me, a man named Ron DeSantis is now your governor, your new governor of Florida. A wonderful man named DeWine is your governor of the great state of Ohio. Remember what they used to say before my election? You cannot win unless you win Ohio. I won Ohio. We had a tremendous set of victories. You look at the victories.
But if you can't carry, and you certainly didn't carry it 2 weeks ago, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, you're not going to get reelected.
I didn't run. I wasn't running. My name wasn't on the ballot. There are many people that think I don't like Congress. that like me a lot. I get it all the time. Sir, we'll never vote unless you're on the ballot. I get it all the time. People are saying, sir, I will never vote unless you're on the ballot. I say, no, go and vote. Well, what do you mean? As much as I try and convince people to go vote, I'm not on the ballot.